So, welcome everyone to Carving a New Path. My name is Andrea Hyland. I'm the host of this show and the founder of Heal My Voice and The Incubator, an annual online co working space for women creatives. I'm also an ancestral lineage healing practitioner. So, you can find out about all the different things that I do by going to my website. That link is in the show page, along with all the other links for my guest today. So before I tell you about my guest, for anyone who's new to the show, I want to give you context. Back in March 2020, in response to all the change that people were experiencing, I really felt this heart calling to call on people who I knew who had listened to their voice. They had released things from the past. They had birthed new ways of being in the world. And I wanted to have conversations that brought hope to change, to times when unexpected changes happen. And on the show now, we talk about a variety of topics, and it all comes down to ideas that you can use to carve a new path for yourself. Okay, so enough of that. Let's dive in here. I want to just share that my guest today is Verena Borell, and the topics will include the energy flow and overarching themes of 2025 with evolutionary astrology and somatic experiencing. And before we begin our conversation, I'm just going to read some words as a way of introducing Verena, and then we will dive into this rich topic. So she lives in the south of Austria, and in her work, she combines evolutionary astrology with intuitive guidance and somatics. She started her 3-year practitioner training with Somatic Experiencing International at the beginning of 2024. Woo, so that's been a year out of the 3 trainings, I just realized. And she addresses both soul and soma more and more in her offerings. So Verena's calling is to bring light and expand consciousness. She supports you holistically in living more self-consciously, to rewild and to free yourself from restrictive conditioning. She helps you find your way back to your true, untamed nature and your light. And you can work one-on-one with Verena or join her workshops, programs, and courses in the area of astrology, spirituality, and personal development. So, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Andrea, for inviting me. It's such an honor and a pleasure.
I love it. And pronounce your name for everyone because I know I have already Americanized it.
Verena.
Thank you. Thank you. Because I know that I would stumble over that, and I appreciate you and just wanted to acknowledge that piece. You know, I wanted to say to the audience, the listeners, before we start talking, that I first learned about you when I watched a summit with astrologers. So I was thinking back, and it must have been 2021 or 2022. It might have been a Martha Hines summit, actually. And then I signed up for or went to your website and found your YouTube channel. And I just started watching you and listening to you. And I was really interested in your viewpoint of from an evolutionary astrology perspective. And I had had astrology readings for maybe 30 years by the time I had, so I was very interested in it, not an astrologer, but interested in the power of it and how, as you've said, you make the astrology can make the unconscious conscious and just help us to understand more about ourselves and what's already happening, what our intuition is telling. And so, then I hired her I signed up for a one-on-one session and have done a number of them with her because I love the way you combine evolutionary astrology, intuition, and somatic experiencing. And I love that that's how you're working. So this is the first time that you're on my podcast, and I'm honored and excited for this conversation. So I just wanted to give everyone context that I have really experienced your work firsthand and am a big fan of yours. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I always enjoy so much to work with you and to have you as a client and also as a wise woman who, yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, I sometimes say to my clients, I cannot tell you something new. You already know. And I can just give you maybe a new perspective, or I can remind you of something that you already knew on a subconscious level and help you to bring that to the light, to the consciousness. Yeah, so it's always a pleasure to work with you, Andrea, and thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah.
My pleasure. All right, let's dive in here. I want to there's so many things I want to ask you, but let's begin with how does the energy flow and go in 2025?
Oh yeah, it's such an interesting year, and I think we are in this huge, we are in years of thresholds and portals. I have the feeling that we are in this in-between space since years, and I have the feeling that on a personal level, everyone is getting a little bit tired of all of the transformation that is happening on a personal level. And I don't know about you, Andrea, but I see in my own life and with many of my clients that it is like, okay, but I have already worked on that. Is there, and there's even more to see and to feel and to heal and to that comes to the surface and layers of layers. And I have the feeling that we are all on a personal, but also in a collective level, we are the shift. We are the change. And I'm not sure if you and I, our generation, will, or the generations that are now alive, will really experience the new earth in this lifetime. So I
Mhm.
think our souls have chosen to incarnate now to make the changes. And I think on a personal level, the change can become quicker. So you can create your life more in alignment with a new earth or a new way of living. But I think that we, quote unquote, reach the new level on a collective level, that will take more time. And I think we all feel this. We all feel that, I mean, 2020 was a point of culmination, a point of where it became very, very clear that the world, how it is right now, is no longer working. I mean, on all levels, um, looking at the earth, nature, looking at political systems. And my focus is not on astrology and politics and these kind of work. I'm really more focused on it on the individual, because I think that healing and transformation and evolution starts with the individual soul. But of course, it's all one. And what I feel and what I see is that more and more individuals are waking up in a way, are waking up to a new consciousness or a new level. And I don't want to say a higher, and I don't want to say to rise consciousness. I really want to say expand, because it's a deepening, it's a widening, it's a uprising. It goes in all levels. It goes into the body, onto earth, into the cosmos. So it's more this seeing that the old ways are no longer working, and that systems of oppression that we often have overtaken from the outside inside of ourselves, where we repress ourselves and where we don't allow our own body or our own needs or our own emotions to be authentically here and to thrive in a way. I think that we are all in this deep discovery process and exploration process where we are actually not living in the way that we are meant to live and we are meant to be, and where are we actually not sharing the gifts that we are here to share, but where we are fulfilling expectations, follow societal rules, try to survive in a system where you can actually just survive if you exploit your body and work from morning till night. And we are all in this transition phase. So I think 2025, to come back to your question, actually.
No, it's so good. Yeah, keep going.
To come back to your question, I think 2025 is one more year in the sequence of many years where we are invited to come more and more back to our essence and to see more and more what is no longer working on an individual and collective level. And that often comes with disillusionment, that often comes with confusion, that often comes with a sense of self-loss. And I think that to bring it a little bit more into the present moment, 24 and 25, I think in 2020, in 24 and also 23, we had, when I look at the transits, we had the lunar nodes in the North Node in Aries, the South Node in Virgo. There was so much about really releasing this idea that we must fulfill expectations to be loved and to be safe, and this deep calling to follow more our authenticity, to become the leader of our own life, to be more courageous, to show up more who we truly are. And now in 2025, we have the lunar nodes shift into North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. And I think, and at the same time, we have many outer planets changing signs. So we have Neptune and Saturn changing from Pisces into Aries. So that means, and we have a Venus cycle in Aries, we have this play between Pisces and Aries. And Pisces, really this knowing that, we are individual beings, Aries, but we are also connected with all that is. And we are childs of God or of the divine. And I think that there comes a new flavor into our, what I said, the exploration, that it is all about returning to our true essence and actually creating a new world and a new earth. I think it comes back to this knowing that it is about being yourself, and also at the same time, it is about trusting that you are guided and that you are part of a bigger meaning. And I think on a very practical and individual level, that can really mean that, okay, in 2024, you maybe ended some relationships that were out of balance. You maybe worked on your fawning patterns and people-pleasing patterns, and now you are allowing yourself to, be more yourself. And then the question comes, but if I'm following more and more my way and I'm not fulfilling expectations, what is actually my way?
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think we are really, really called in 2025 to ask ourselves the question, when I'm not following the rules and when I'm not listening to the expectations of others, what is actually guiding me? And I think now it's really about trusting yourself, trusting the divine, trusting your guidance, and grounding yourself in your spiritual practice and not get confused. Or get confused in a good way, because sometimes we need to get confused to find the path that our soul wants to go. Yeah, I'll stop here and I would love to hear. Sorry, I talked so
Yeah,
long.
no, that was so good. There's a part of me that doesn't even want to enter the conversation because I'm enjoying so much your words, your perspective, your wisdom, and it's one of the reasons I wanted one-on-one sessions with you for so many reasons, to really engage in these kinds of conversations. There's a couple things I want to reflect on. I was thinking about when you were talking about like the fatigue that people are feeling and just like, oh, what? Like, didn't we already go through this and it's still happening and what's going on again? And really, from my perspective, I was thinking about how I had a huge awakening moment when I was 19 in 1976. And then there was space and time to integrate that, to play with that, to continue to explore that. Then I had a huge awakening in 1987 where I disrupted some old patterns in my family and left a marriage, and really that was like throwing an emotional bomb in the middle of the family. And that was still the focus for years. And then there came a point where it felt like, oh, there'd be something that happened that was major growth. And maybe I then would have 2 years for that. And then there'd be another major growth. Now it feels like that, right? It's just one right after the other. And in some ways, the I mean, to me, it's one of the reasons that I feel astrology is so vital, as well as the somatics as like how do we take care of these body systems while we're going through so much of this. And I want you to talk about that in a minute. But what it's also doing is, because I've been so tuned into astrology and working with you, it's like, how do I use the power that's in this? Not power over others, but the power of the awakening, so that when things get stirred up, for instance, in the family that happened for me over end of November into December, where it was like, really, this pattern is still here? And then it was like, okay, where do I stay present with it? Where do I just let things play out? The like working with the this to actually disrupt it. And like you said, not necessarily knowing what it's going to look like, but knowing that something has to change. That I can't play in that arena. And matter of fact, my body won't even let me. My body will be like, whoa, back up. So, yeah, I just feel like I want to just turn it back over to you to reflect or bring in whatever pieces that's stirring for you.
Andrea, thank you so much for sharing. And what is coming up for me is that, and that is also, yeah, weaving into my way how I came to evolutionary astrology and then to somatic experiencing, is because I feel, and I'm still in this process of finding out why my spirit guides led me onto this path, evolutionary astrology, somatic experiencing. intuitive guidance. And what I'm feeling right now, and maybe that will change because I make new experiences, but right now it feels like that evolutionary astrology helps me, helps us to on a more intellectual and spiritual level to bring into consciousness and to see the patterns that are more in the subconscious or unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So with the help of evolutionary astrology or other branches of astrology, but I think evolutionary astrology is really good because it goes so deep. You can really see when you look at your chart and or on transit charts, you can see, wow, okay, that are the dynamics, that are the patterns that I'm subconsciously feel, but now I can see it more clearly. Or when you look at transits, for example, now the shift from the lunar nodes from Aries to Pisces and the outer planets, the transits that are happening this year. Uranus goes into Gemini in summer, Jupiter goes into Cancer, all of these things that show us that there are some archetypal energy shifts at play and in the field that we can all feel on a subconscious level and see in the world and perceive, but astrology helps us to get it, to really get it better,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
to give our human brain sometimes more framing or more background story to put our own experiences into a context so that we can work with it. For example, when you know a little bit about your birth chart and you now are with family members, then you can see, wow, here is maybe this part of me that always wants to please the other, to be safe, maybe my Libra parts. And okay, that is this pattern. So what would be the shadow of this Libra part of me? People pleasing, fawning, but I have very much self-compassion with it because I know that it is just here to make me to survive in my upbringing, in my family. And what would be the more empowered version of this part, of this Libra archetype, of this Libra energy in me? Bringing more balance, seeing very clearly the other side, but don't lose my own ground, for example. So it's a way for me, evolutionary astrology is a way to bring to the surface and bring to consciousness, bring to the light what is unconscious. And evolution and somatic experiencing, in a way, does the same thing with the body.
Mm-hmm.
So because we learn about the reactions and the very natural ways our nervous system functions, and by getting more in contact with our body and by becoming aware of how our body acts and reacts, it helps us to actually act in a more conscious way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For example, when I recognize that there's tension and that my body is tightening up, and when I actually recognize it and not recognize it and then get angry and scream or do things that are actually out of fear and out of unresolved trauma or unaware trauma, that can get really dirty. Instead of, I can recognize, ooh, my body is tightening. There is fear. I can work with this fear. It's not about making the fear go away, but it's about, okay, I'm tightening. Is it time now? Is it in the here and now good to scream, or does my body tighten up because it's actually unresolved trauma from my childhood, because my caregivers did this and this, and now this situation reminds me. So it's kind of, you know what I mean? It's kind of learning more to listen to our body, which does not mean that we always need to follow it, but learning how our body speaks with us and learning to bring more consciousness into our body and more self-awareness and also more self-compassion. I think astrology and somatic experiencing help us to see, okay, yeah, it's actually just my tender animal body that wants to keep me alive. And it's actually just an inner critic part that just wants to save me when I was a child. So I love somatic experiencing and evolutionary astrology because it brings so much more consciousness on all levels. And I think what you said about this integration processes, so on my own healing journey, I first found evolutionary astrology. And I worked with evolutionary astrology first for myself, and then I felt called to share it with others. And I, quote unquote, understood my patterns on a spiritual level, on a soul level, on a mental level, on an intellectual level. But I could not change my behavior. And I was in panic all the time, and my body was like doing her own thing. And so I understood that I also need to take my body with me.
Yeah. I get that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I found somatic experiencing when I had I have a sun in Taurus, Uranus was conjunct my sun in Taurus, and I had an awakening into my body and onto the earth. And I realized that I was many, many years, maybe, yeah, since I'm conscious, very much away from my body. And now I come more and more into my body and onto the earth. And I have like a feeling that I'm born again, but now on a very earthy level. And I think that there is a big challenge that I see right now. Next year, and also, yeah, the day and age that we are in, that we don't take the time to take our body with us and to integrate. And I think that is actually the key to the new earth, the body and the earth.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say I'm really glad that you have that awareness and that you decided to dive into a deeper study with it and then bring that into the astrology, because when I think back to my early days of like meditation and learning about astrology and everything, a coping skill as a child was that when things got too intense in the household I was growing up in, I would say that I would leave my body. And so some people may be able to relate to that, leaving the body. And another way of thinking of it as the body, in a sense, like rejecting the body and becoming numb in some way, and that can even look like getting sick and needing to be in bed to rest, and like that being the only way that you know how to respond to your body. And when I was in my 30s, I had an autoimmune condition and I ended up having a healing crisis, ending up in the hospital, and then having like a big epiphany while I was there, where I began to reconnect with my body at that time. And what I found, one of the side benefits of that was that my intuition got stronger. So before I would have thought, no, I have to be up here. I actually have to leave my body for my intuition. And it's just the opposite. It's actually, we need to, so everything that you're saying is just helping me remember. Yeah, it's the coming back into the body, which is why there's so much talk about grounding and earthing and feeling yourself and feeling connected. Like we came here for a physical experience. We came into the body. Otherwise, our souls could have been, being wherever the spirits are and not needing the body as a vehicle. But the body is um, vital to our actual understand and being able to integrate what the mind is seeing or learning or understanding and bringing it into the body for actual uh, utilization in a sense.
It's so, I'm so glad that you shared it, Andrea, and I want to share a very funny experience that I had that is very similar to yours. So I think it's 2 years ago, and I was meditating, and I was like more in the Akashic field, and my guides told me, darling, this year you can do that. That's no problem for you. You need to go down into the body. Don't talk with us, go down into the body.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, my Akashic guides tell me that I need to go down. Okay, I'll do that. And I think, Andrea, that while I was listening to your story, I think two things came up for me. The one thing is that I think there are people that are more in the material realm, more in the earth realm, and for them, awakening maybe means to open up more.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there are people that are more light and consciousness, and for them, maybe awakening means to come down into the body. And I think that
I love that.
on a nervous system level, or when I look at your story through the lens of somatic experiencing, I would say it was a very smart threat response of your nervous system that you went out of the body.
Mm.
It was for your survival. But when I even zoom more out and look at it more from a spiritual or soul perspective, I think that it was perfect because your soul needed to experience being in the higher realms, being very much spirit, and
Mhm.
then your way led you down.
Mhm.
And I have the feeling sometimes maybe that's because my son is in the 12th house. And sometimes I have the feeling that it should not, I hope it does not sound somehow crazy, but sometimes I have the feeling that my personal evolution is so much connected with the evolution of humankind,
Mhm.
of the whole evolution of the planet, because for me it was the same. I was very, I exploited. It's this exploitation of the body, dissociation from the body, and now the slow coming back down. And I have the feeling that our whole culture and um, yeah, that over centuries and hundreds of ages, yeah, people cut the connection to the earth and cut the connection to themselves and exploited earth, exploited the human body, used human bodies as working machines, um, oppressed the feminine principle, and that it's no longer working. So it's not working. And now we are on this way back to come into a balance. I think it's really to come into a balance and to, on a very individual level, see, okay, where do we exploit our body? Where do we exploit our spirit? And where do we exploit earth in a way and our feminine energies? And I'm not talking about physical gender,
Mm.
really talking about this. Yeah, and I think it's so, and these are questions that I go into 2025 with a lot of question marks too, because I ask myself, how can I follow my calling and work in a way that my body is happy and that I earn enough money in a system that is just working because everybody works against their body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and I think that especially what you said about this intuition that also sits in the body, I think, yeah, our soul choose to incarnate in a body on planet Earth. And my guides always tell me, darling, you need to put it into matter. So it does not make any sense if you get it on a spiritual level, because you are here on planet Earth this time. Maybe I had lifetimes in other dimensions. I know that.
Uh-huh.
But here on planet Earth, it's really about dealing with the conditions that are here. And they are beautiful. I mean, Planet Earth is beautiful. Our body is a wonder. It's magical. And yeah, I think that especially with these changes, these quick changes and this quick evolution and this quick transformation, it's too much. It's too much for our body and our nervous system. And I think what I can see and what I can sense, and this is one reason more why I work also with evolutionary astrology and somatic experiencing, is that our nervous system is not made for a world where we have so many stimuli and so many information that are going into our channels. It's too much too fast, and this is the definition of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
overwhelm and um, because of that, I think that we have the South Node in Virgo, the North Node in Pisces, and I think there is so much also fire energy in the field and air energy. I think one super important quote unquote advice that I would give everyone is really to make some sort of grounding, time, space, grounding, nature, calm, integration, all the things,
Mm-hmm.
especially now at the beginning of the year. So we are starting the year with Mars retrograde. Afterwards, Venus will go retrograde. So if you now feel like everything is slow and you don't have the solutions and you don't know how to go on, take the time to integrate, to rest, to reflect, to strengthen your trust muscle, because the pace will quicken. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'll stop here. I really want to know what you think, Andrea.
Yeah, wow, there's just so much. First of all, I want to say to the listeners, something I want you to understand about the conversation that we're having is that this is what evolution looks like. It is these, the slow times that begin the build up, the faster times that come in. And it's not to be fearful of what's happening. It is to recognize that this is part of an evolutionary pattern that we were all in, and then figure out what do you need to support your process. And so, we're speaking about it in a lot of different ways with some stories and with putting words to what these different feelings are. And I love that the way that you talked about people who might be very connected to their bodies and haven't had the spirit opening, and then those who left the body out of protection for the body. I mean, I'm always saying, oh my gosh, my little child was so wise to know this is too much. So like, whew, leave the body or go numb for survival. And that there is, so it's one takeaway is there is a lot going on and there is an acceleration going on. Another takeaway is that it's not all going to be changed during our lifetime. I have my fourth granddaughter was born this summer in July. And one of the things early on with her was I was like, what song do I want to sing to her regularly? And I brought in a song that Mama Cass sang in the 60s, that there's a new world coming and it's just around the bend. There's a new world coming. And it was like at 3 weeks old, when I sang that particular song to her, she would light up. She would get so excited, and that was her song for the first few months of her life. And I could see there of like, yes, so what am I doing and being in my life right now? How do I take care of myself? What is my astrology pattern? What are the gifts and skills I can bring forth into the world? How do I take care of my body so that I'm doing what I've come here to do for her, for the next generations that are coming? And I'm sure my soul will decide. I mean, I believe in many lifetimes, that I've had many lifetimes and I will have more. My soul will decide when to come back or to do it from another realm. Um, so I love this, we're having a big broad conversation about the energies, and I just encourage everyone to just tune in to what it is for you, because there's a lot in this conversation today. And you don't have to expect to process it all at this time. It's something that, we've talked about, and also we've both been living in our different ways. So there's so much more. I mean, I feel like, could we just have like a 3-hour conversation here? Um, I want to just tune in to what would you like to say, like in 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up the show, because it feels like there's a lot of rich material here for people to go back and listen to and think about and reflect on. I really encourage anyone who's stirred with something to, do some journaling or go walk in nature or help yourself take one idea and process that for yourself. So I'll just turn it over to you, because I know there were so many things we were going to talk about, and we've been kind of weaving them in. What would you like to kind of finish this conversation with?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. And I think that you said one very important thing is that, or you said many important things, but one thing stood up for me right now is that um, what I want to emphasize is I'm really not looking, my perspective on the world and on all of the evolution and the transformation that is happening is very positive in a way.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think we are really doing it.
Yes, I think
And
we are too.
and there's a part of me that every time when something scare when something is happening in the world that is scary and that is there's this part of me that says yes, and that's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why you are here. That's the reason why you are here, to bring light, to do that. And I think that, and that is something that I learned from from one of my somatic experiencing teachers, is that we can get lost in the trouble of the world. And I think what is really, really the first step to do the work and to do your light work, quote unquote, is that you as an individual being who listens to this podcast, you as Andrea, me as Verena, that we stay sane
Yeah.
and that we be very careful with our own nervous systems. And if that means that you don't watch the news, because when you watch the news, your whole nervous system gets so overwhelmed that you are just in a threat response and in constant panic and cannot think clearly because your nervous system is actually in survival mode, that does not help.
Mhm.
So if you have the capacity to, and the strength and the inner security and all of these things, to work with other people, to do things, to be, to work, to do changes outside, I would say, or to work political, or in a way, do that. But I think it's completely fine if you just do your own inner stuff and that you take care of your own nervous system. And for me personally, and I say that, I need to be super, super, super careful what influences I take into my system because my nervous system is hyper quickly overwhelmed. So that I stay sane and grounded and can do the work that I feel called to do. That means that I take a lot of quiet time, a lot of time in nature, a lot of time with horses, which are very healing and powerful for me. So it's very important to say that for me. When you listen to that, really, especially in the new year and or in 2025, we are already in it. I think especially with the North Node and Pisces, that is so much about and open up your spiritual gifts, and you feel maybe more, and there can be a sense of overwhelm and also a sense of no boundaries. And I think the South Node in Virgo is really about, okay, do you need to withdraw? Do you need to take some temple time for yourself? Do you need to clarify yourself, to do some energy clearing, to really set some boundaries and take some time for yourself? And I think I listened to a podcast episode, Tarot for the Wild Soul by Lindsay Mack. And I think she said something about, I think it was about the Wheel of Fortune card, actually, but I thought about this idea that she said, and when everything is changing, you still need to cut the apples for your porridge in the morning or something like that. Or
Mhm.
you have to cut the apples for your children. I'm paraphrasing.
Mhm.
So this, what daily practices actually, what do you need to do to take care of your body, to take care of your health, to do your daily little work, the little things that keep you sane? And I think that's so healing. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
And strengthening the trust muscle in 2025. If you don't know yet, just, lean into the trust that answers will come and that you sometimes don't have to, that you cannot solve it alone and with your brain. Strengthen your body while you're waiting, tend to your nervous system while you're waiting, and trust that you are on your path and new possibilities, will come in divine timing to you. And then take the aligned action.
Mhm. Mhm.
Then be courageous to trust yourself and your guidance. Yeah.
I love that. And there's just something that I want to, there's a part of me that doesn't want to say anything else because I love how you ended that. And I want to point something out to the listeners. You may be in a situation where you are in an area that has some natural disasters that are happening. And you know that 5, 6 miles away, there are people who are going through some devastating things. You may be living in a part of the world where there is war that is happening in the country right next to you. These are all real things that are happening on the planet. And everything that Verena has said about cutting the apple, pick the apples, cut the apples, cook the porridge. I mean, one of the things I've noticed where I am right now, which is Los Angeles, is I'm south of the fires. I'm very close. I can see the smoke on the other side of coming from the other side of the mountain. And some of the self-care is to walk on the beach and send love to everyone who is on the front line. Some people are going to be on the front line of some kind of devastation, but it does not help them to actually be so plugged into it that it's hurting your nervous system. So everything that you shared, everything that you're saying is the reminder for all of us that we've all had or will have some kind of challenges, that we will be more affected by something than another. But it does not help people for us to be in that kind of heightened activity within our nervous system, activating that in a way that's negative for our bodies. We actually need to be doing just the opposite to find those everyday daily activities, clean the bathroom, sweep the floor, eat healthy food. You can send prayers. If there's a way that you are guided to actually go and serve food to firefighters or make a donation or whatever, follow that. But you do not have to be plugged into that
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, I love that, Andrea. And just one thing that I want to add to that, because I think the question, how can I feel safe in a world that is unsafe, is a complete other, a
Right.
second conversation. But one thing that I am learning in my somatic experiencing training is also that if your house is on fire, you want your nervous system to panic and to run, of course.
Exactly.
But
Hmm.
if you are watching the news, seeing house on fire, and you are actually safe, allow yourself to feel safe, because that is your present reality in the here and now. And it does not help to freak out, because it's kind of what you said, really, yeah, attend to your own capacity, and don't think that you're not doing that you're not compassionate, when you are taking care of yourself in these times. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I feel like that brings us to a beautiful place to stop. And I want to, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for your open-hearted sharing and for the wisdom that you bring to these conversations. So thank you. I really appreciate you, and it's been wonderful to connect with you in this way.
Thank you, Andrea.
And the other thing is, I just want to shine a light for all the listeners that in the show page, there are different links for how to uh, get some freebies, to see the offerings that Verena has. Do you want to speak to any of these things? I know that we had some that we were going to mention. I can mention them, but I wanted to give it to you if you want to say anything about them.
Yeah, I have a free gift for you. It's an astrological archetypes guide, which gives you a quick insight into the topics of the 12 astrological archetypes, so from Aries to Pisces. So I think that's a fun thing for everyone, for astro beginners, but also for people who are actually, yeah, more experienced in astrology, but want to get a glimpse from an evolutionary perspective and also my perspective. And yeah, one of the offerings that I'm putting out right now is my one-on-one Soul and Soma sessions. So I more and more bring together evolutionary astrology with somatic experiencing. So when you book one-on-one sessions or guidances where I support you over several months with me, yeah, we see what you need in the session. If you need more the spiritual, intellectual view, or if it's low clear in the mind and it's actually about going deeper and exploring a topic in the body, yeah, we will do everything that serves you on your individual path. And yeah, I also have several courses, programs, workshops coming up, and some of them that are pre-recorded. And I have written an ebook about asteroid goddess Diana, but I think maybe I come back to talk
Yes.
about
Yeah.
that at a different point. So yeah, thank you
Mm.
so much, Andrea, for putting all the links in the show notes. Thank
Mm.
you. And
My,
yeah, maybe one thing, if you want to stay in contact with me, just sign up for my newsletter. So that's my main channel. Because of my own nervous system, I'm not really active on Instagram because that overwhelms me. So my newsletter is the main portal into my world. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you to the listeners. And please leave comments on how this has inspired you or stirred something in you. Share what's going on in your life. We'd love to hear from you there. Yeah. So thank you. Until we meet again. Bye bye now.